Lions fans, it's time for the podcast you've been waiting for. The show where Kool-Aid runs blue, faces turn red, and rose-colored glasses never go out of style. This is the Detroit Lions Podcast, your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection. And now, two guys who haven't scored since 1958. Chris and Case.
Hey, howdy-ho, Lions fans. Welcome to the Detroit Lions Podcast, episode 253. This is the official Detroit Lions podcast for Reddit. I am your dashing host, Chris. And with me is my good friend and co-host, Case. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, Chris. This whole XFL thing's been pretty exciting. I decided, I just kind of randomly picked based on who I thought looked cool, but I decided on the New York Guardians, and they did pretty well. Who do you pick, and how are they doing?
I think my wife said it best when she said it was like watching football every other damn Sunday. Things didn't go as planned. The local boys were evidently not the boys that we should have been rooting for. So what are you going to do, I guess? Life in the fast lane, life in the big city, life in my brand of misery. Let's just move on from that. We're going to talk about today's show. We got a lot to talk about. XFL is going to be a piece of it, but we got draft shatter. We're gonna shatter your chatter in the draft. We got Chase Young, Jeffrey Okudah, trade back. Got a lot of possibilities. We're going to talk about that number 3 pick, or what it might mean, where we could go, what could happen, and what our preferences are as of today. We're going to talk about the Quinn Trisha ultimatum that's been out there and people have talked about. There's a post in Reddit that we want to address about that. Also, we are going to have our old friend, our good friend, Dean Blandino. He's going to break down the first week of the NFL. He's going to look ahead to the second week of the XFL. And we're just going to take a look at it. It was a fun league, and there's a lot of good stuff to talk about from that. So we're just going to go ahead and jump in a little on that. Got that and a whole lot more. Great show lined up. Case, you ready to go, my man?
Chris, at a certain point, I think you have to ask whether it's you or the team.
Let's kick this off and break it down.
I think we all know the answer to that. All right, a couple of quick announcements. First, check us out and help us out on the Patreon. Special thanks to Dylan from Guam. Very sexy, very sexy. Of course, our very first donor, Mathis, and Brian B. from iPrevail, iPrevailBand.com. Check them out. They are awesome live. They're on tour right now. You don't want to miss. But how do you get to hang out with those people? The Riz, Case, myself, a whole bunch of cool people. Well, you do it in the most intelligent chat on the internet, our Slack chat for Patreon users. Head over to Patreon, become a donor, get access to the Slack chat, and have fun. And I mean, some of the stuff we're talking about today will come straight out of those conversations. It really is some of the best stuff you're going to find. Little as $1 a month. Of course, we appreciate more than that. It helps us do all the great things we do, like Senior Bowl and our parties and our training camp coverage and all that. Head on over, Patreon, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast, and join the crew. You get some good stuff out of it beyond the Slack. You get some really great stuff, previews, early information, and there's the one we dropped today. We'll drop a little later in the show, and you get access to opportunities to ask questions of our highly esteemed guests. So check us out, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Also, don't forget about us on Facebook, facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast, Instagram, Detroit Lions Podcast, and on the Twitter machine at DET Lions Podcast. Give us a follow, DET Lions Podcast. It's the very best place to see Case
with no pants on.
And who wouldn't want to see that? Subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. What else would it be? Get in there. You can hit the bell. You get notified every time we go live. You can see that. You can get notified every time we get a little one of those video things up. We got some cool stuff in the wings coming up, so check that out. Get subscribed in there. Also on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, iHeart, Pandora, all those places. You can just subscribe there. Rate us there. Give us those 5 stars. Love those 5 stars. Those things are forever, though. So if you'd like to give us some criticism, head on over to the subreddit, and we'll happily discuss what ticked you off. I'd give names of people you can ask, but for sure we totally do that. Give us a call on Skype, Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, Detroit Lions Podcast, if you use the Skype, or on the Lions line at 929-33-LIONS, 929-335-4667. Leave a message, get a chance to hear yourself on the show.
Tighten your chin straps, kids. It's time to review this week in Reddit.
I'm starting to like this Sissy Truly stuff. It's pretty yummy. Nothing. No problem with the low carb, no low cal kind of living, I guess. All right, we got a lot to talk about today, and I think the biggest topic that's got people going right now is the idea of drafting Mr. Tua, and I think that we're aligned on this case for the Detroit Lions to pick up Tua at 3. You were saying in the Slack earlier how great an idea it was.
Yeah, we're absolutely behind it.
Oh, wait, I said it was the most intelligent. I just said that. Hold on. All right. Let's talk about this Tua idea. We touched on it before, but I think, now there's more info. Now there's some people really thinking, what is this? What is this case?
Well, okay, so I think it's a bad idea for a lot of reasons. But, I think most people have been focusing on, just the fact that we like Stafford and that people still have faith in Stafford and that there's no, guarantee that Tua is going to be any good and things like that. And I agree with all that. I think that's, that's really the maybe the main point. But what I did was I looked at it from a financial aspect. Mm-hmm. And the idea, and even a lot of the comments that I've seen on subreddit, on various things that are pro Tua, I think people don't think those things all the way through. The biggest benefit of having a good quarterback on a rookie contract, and obviously you don't know whether or not Tua is actually going to be any good or not. Like that's still way up in the air.
Can I just jump in with the really quick piece from the chat?
Yeah,
because it's really, really good. Chris, I'll just say it's Chris C, because I don't give people's last names. He says we give up 50 sacks a year and Tua is always hurt. Please no. It's really, the long and short of it, right? Go ahead. I didn't mean to undercut you. But
no, that's okay.
It's a bad proof.
But the biggest benefit of having a young quarterback on a rookie contract is the rookie contract, because right. Patrick Mahomes would still probably be a very good quarterback in another situation, but it's because the Chiefs have been able to surround him with such a plethora of talent that they were able to go to the Super Bowl this year and win. Like obviously I don't know, I can't, I don't have a crystal ball, but it would be very surprising if the same Chiefs team that won the Super Bowl this year had been able to do so if they couldn't have afforded to bring in that extra talent that his contract allowed them to do.
Right.
That's the benefit of having a rookie quarterback. The issue is that Stafford...
There's one other piece of that, though, but because the quarterback is the largest chunk of your salary cap, right? Why don't you, isn't it great to have any player on it? Absolutely. But when you got a guy that eats up 15 to 17 to maybe 20% of your salary cap, you want that player in particular as a comparative advantage to be on a rookie contract. Go ahead. Sorry.
The issue is that Stafford, if we were to try to, cut him or even to trade him under most circumstances, would still be costing us a massive amount of money over the next 2 seasons.
Isn't it like
15? And so you immediately take that advantage that you're hoping to have for 4 or hopefully 5 years with a rookie contract a quarterback taken in the first round. And you've already just slashed 2 years off of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you add that to the risk factors involved with taking a rookie quarterback, it just almost makes it nonsensical. If you're going to take a rookie quarterback, you want to be in the best position to take advantage of having that rookie quarterback.
Sure, yeah.
We are not in that position right now, and we won't be until the 2022 draft.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And we've talked about this, and I've kind of brought it up. You know how I do. I use appreciative inquiry, or in other words, I ask dumb questions sometimes to illustrate a point. And I've asked this, well, why don't we just get a quarterback and he can sit and learn under Stafford for a year? That doesn't happen. There's just too much money. The only person that you would draft if you're looking for a quarterback, if you're the Detroit Lions this year, is Joe Burrow, because he is one of those talents.
Oh, even then.
Absolutely. No, I get it. But he's one of those talents that you absolutely cannot pass on. Now, That's a tough one. Joe Burrow is a tough one. I'm just going to say I lean towards I just take him, and I hate to say that because I love Stafford, right? I've said that many times, but I take him. The other option is, boy, he is worth a lot. You could probably get a ton of treasure if you're sitting number one and you trade away and let someone else have Joe Burrow.
Well, and here's what I'll tell you: the way the trends are going at the moment, Tua's stock is on the rise again. And while Burrow had one of the greatest college football seasons of all time, he is a one-year wonder, whereas Tua had the consistency, and Tua projects easier as a long-term fit in the NFL than Burrow does. At least if health is not an issue.
Sure.
I'm seeing a lot of comparisons to Drew Brees with Tua, whereas Burrow is nobody is sure whether or not he'll be. I mean, what he was able to do in a single season is questionable as to whether or not that's sustainable for him. So I mean, it's not going to blow my mind if the narrative on those two QBs is flipped by the time the actual draft comes around.
Right.
I'm not personally going to take either of them. If one or the other of them is available when we're picking, we should be able to get a good trade deal and take advantage of that.
Right.
But if I go back to the contract situation again, so like I said, we wouldn't be in position until the 2022 draft to take advantage of taking a rookie first round quarterback and getting the most out of that situation. But at the same time, by the time we get to the 2022 draft, Stafford's contract is going to look really favorable compared to the rest of the league. And so unless Stafford at that point is, it's clear that he's not going to be physically able to perform, or it's clear that he's in some way that his talents have diminished, which that was certainly not the case before he got hurt this last year. He was playing the best football of his career, and we'll talk about that later. It doesn't. Honestly, the most obvious scenario that plays out here is that he plays out the rest of his contract, and either they choose not to re-up him, or they extend him and he continues to play for the Lions. I mean, those are the two most obvious scenarios here. And if you're clamoring for a rookie quarterback, this is not the year. You're shooting yourself in the foot if they do that. So
I thought you were
that's I think the logic just doesn't match the desire of some fans.
Yeah. And I'll say one other thing about that kind of idea. The Brandon in the chat brings up a kind of converse point. People forget that Kansas City was already a playoff team with Alex Smith, and they traded way up to get Mahomes.
Yep.
Interesting situation, right? And it's just something to think about. Is Joe Burrow Mahomes? I don't know. So a lot to talk about with that, right? What else onto it? So I say that again. That was my appreciative inquiry. I don't think you get rid of Matthew Stafford. I think you still have a number of years left with him in this city, especially as well as he played last year. The idea that he's injury prone or any of that kind of stuff is absolutely silly to me.
Well, I don't know. I don't know whether or not he's going to be able to fully recover from this back thing, but that's the team has to decide whether or not they have the faith in him to do that. But it unless they're absolutely convinced that he can't, now is not the time to move on.
No, absolutely not. Unless he retires. All right.
In which case we're screwed, completely, because then we have to take a quarterback, and we still get screwed with the dead cap money. So, and
can you imagine the screams and howls of pain from people who would blame the administration, the owners, and the coaches in the front office?
I can't.
You can, but you don't want to. I get it. All right. Hey, with that, really quick. You want to know about injuries? You want to learn how to understand how Matthew Stafford's injuries aren't really that serious? Go get yourself an anatomy book. There's a good medical book. You can pick one up over at Amazon, right?
Yeah.
Get yourself some studying in. Get smarter. Do that stuff.
Right? That's where I get all my anatomy books, Chris.
Well, it's better than the rack on 7-Eleven, Case. Jeez. Anyway, head on over.
I've seen some good racks on 7-Eleven.
Amazon.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Amazon.DetroitLionsPodcast.com.
Don't throw your money into Jeff Bezos' pocket without stopping by there first. It shoots you right through to Amazon, gives you a cookie in your browser. You don't even notice it happens. We slide it right in there. And with that magic, they give us a cut of the sales. You keep some of that money out of that greedy son of a gun Jeff Bezos' pocket, and you help enrich the empire of the Detroit Lions podcast, as you can see. Head on over, do that. We love it when you do that. It helps support the show and help support us in all the things we do. Again, go to amazon.detroitlionspodcast.com anytime you're going to go to Amazon to buy anything, and help us out. We appreciate you doing that and helping us by doing something you were going to do anyway. All right, let's get into the draft a little more. We have this question. What's the deal at number 3 and why? And there's a couple scenarios that I think we want to talk about. And I'm going to let you kick off the first one, Case. It's just straight up. We got number 3. Whatever reason, Chase Young's there. What do we do?
It still depends on what anybody else might be willing to give us for him.
Okay, go. Stop. You're going to go in left field. You take Chase Young. That's our first scenario. Okay. We're going to talk about somebody else. We got a couple scenarios here to go through. You take Chase Young. What does that do for your team?
Well, he's a really good pass rusher. I mean, I don't think there's any two ways about it. And I know that, there's been a lot of, a lot of people, anytime a draft pick gets this much attention, you're going to find people who are looking for the reasons why they're not as good as people say they are.
Sure.
And it's not that I don't understand where some of these people are coming from, that, he disappeared in some of the best games, but then you look at those best games and he's being double teamed the whole time. And if you got a player like him being double teamed, I mean, that, anytime you've got a player that demands 2 defensive players, on every play, that's setting up advantages for everyone else. So I have no problem with that. He's got the strength, he's got speed, he's got tenacity and finish. I have no problem whatsoever with having Chase Young on this team. I'm not sure he's exactly the best fit for Matt Patricia's defense.
That's where the big knock is, right? And this is where I'm extremely torn, because Chase Young, if he's there, he is absolutely BPA. He's just that player. Yeah. You gotta take him, right? It's like having Joe Burrow first. You gotta take him. You gotta, unless you got Peyton Manning in his prime, and even then you wouldn't be drafting first if you did. It's I love Chase Young, but the fit on this team and what would be the impact of Chase Young be? I feel like if Chase is there at 3, we get him, or. And this is the other thing. This is now the one that's the big kahuna that people are talking about. The idea that we pick Okudah. And that's what everyone's talking about, is Okudah number 3 and the fit that is for the Lions. I don't disagree about the fit and how good he is. What do you think about taking Okudah instead straight up at 3?
I only dislike it in the context of you'd hope to get something more out of that. You'd hope to be able to move down to at least 5 and still take Okudah.
That's the next scenario.
Right. I get it. Like, okay. I get it.
Picking at 3.
I don't like it, but I can't talk about the Okudah pick at number 3 without talking about the context in which I like it or dislike it.
You have to.
I'm not thrilled with it because I think I can do better if I'm able to get him elsewhere. But as far as a fit, I do like him a lot. And so maybe the big knock on Okudah is a lack of takeaways. Mm-hmm. But I've watched a little bit of film on Okudah. I'm not an expert by any means. But damn, is he shut down. I mean, he breaks up passes left and right. He is up in everybody's grill. And the concern would be translating that to the NFL, translating that specifically to the Lions without getting penalized all the time for it. But if he can stay as sticky as he is and continue to break up passes like he does, I mean, I don't care if he gets a ton of turnovers as long as he doesn't allow big passes on a regular basis.
Right. So the thing is, and let's talk about snap counts, because snap counts are where you're going to see a big difference between Okudah and Chase Young. You're going to see Okudah on the field for many, many more snaps and making an impact. It seems like more in that manner. Well, right?
You say impact, but I mean the edge position tends to have more impact and less snaps. Or I should say, they have the same amount of impact in a fewer number of snaps in general than a cornerback does, because a cornerback isn't getting targeted all the time. And now, granted, a lot of times a cornerback isn't getting targeted is because the cornerback is doing a really good job, but that's not always the case. They're just not always involved in the play. Whereas an edge player is basically involved in the play no matter what's going on, whether the rushing the passer or running the football. The edge passer is impacting the play. Right. So. Yeah.
And then the other side of it is, as Brendan's referring to, is the amount of time it takes a cornerback to get up to speed where they actually do make an impact, right?
Yeah.
Now, you got to think, though, Okudah with a year under Slay is a really good idea. We know Slay's going, right? We don't know. I mean, you don't know, but I would say it's pretty certain at this point that Slay.
Yeah, I think the writing is on the wall.
Sure. And this is a year that Slay needs to perform. He wants to get paid. He's got to perform. He's got to go out there and he's got to show himself to be the Darius Slay that's going to collect all that money, that 15 mil at least a year that he's talking about on Twitter, right? So what does he do? He has to go out there and play. He has to ball out, and he has to be good in the locker room too, because it gets around what you're like in the locker room.
Yeah.
And what an opportunity for Okudah to spend a year growing under Slay for that first year. Right. And the same thing with Arawariye. He's still out there. Yeah. He's kicking it. He's no one to write off yet by any stretch of the imagination. He was looking good at the end of last year.
It would be awesome to have our 1 and our 2 set, for the
4 years. Yeah.
Foreseeable future. I mean, That'd be fucking awesome.
And then you think about it, right? Go back to when we had Nick Fairley and Ndamukong Suh. And we said, hey, let's go ahead and pick Eric Ebron. And everything melted down at defensive tackle right away. And we could have had Aaron Donald. And I'm not saying about the difference between Donald and Ebron, right? I mean, I was Sammy Watkins, that guy. That was the guy I was the highest on for us right that year. But the thing is we didn't plan ahead. And we didn't look at the contracts. We didn't look at the long haul. The question is this regime going to, based on the letter, we'll talk about the letter later from Martha, about they got a year to get in the playoffs, right? Where's their head at with, do they have time to grow this team or do they not?
Yeah. And that's where I completely agree. Okudah makes a lot of sense. It just that if you take him at 3, you're kicking yourself that you weren't able to get a little bit more value out of that pick.
Yeah, for sure. So it's tough. It's a tough decision, right? So I feel like Chase Young at 3 is the way to go. I feel like Okudah has a lot of value, but it's a longer term play. It's an investment. People don't like, you put that money in your 401k because you don't ever have to take it out of your pocket to put it in there, right? If you had to take money every week and then put it aside, it's harder to do that, right? If you never see it, it's great. That's why you can raise taxes and nobody really complains about it. So the thing is,
also remember what the Raiders were able to get for Mac when they traded him to the Bears. Like, if you're able to get a player like Young, even if he isn't a perfect fit, as long as you let him do his thing and do it well, trade him in a couple of years, and you might be able to get a king's ransom for him.
Right? No, absolutely. And he makes that kind of immediate impact that a front office on an ultimatum might just want. Right. So yeah, you kind of think about it. You have to think about it from a couple perspectives, right? What is the long term for the Lions? What's the right investment for the future? What's the incentives for the front office? Where are they at? Now, let's go to the next scenario. And this is the one that I kind of feel like I like the best. Okay. Is a trade that still gets us Okudah. Okay. Because like I said, I feel like if we're just at 3 and they traded away for a quarterback in Washington and Chase Young is sitting there, you just have to take Chase Young. You just have to. But what if you trade, and we'll say Miami because of the easiest ones, you could almost guarantee yourself an Okudah pick and another first-round pick or second-round pick at least with Miami, right? And they get
you're looking at their later first-round pick would be my guess. But
yeah. So you should have then 3 starters by pick 33 or wherever we're at. You wind up in a pretty decent spot with what you have for picks, even if you mess up one. Right. So the idea of trade plus Okudah, I like that one. Right. And I like the extra picks. And again, if you think of the incentives of the front office, if they've got to do it this year, they want to get guaranteed starters if they can out of this draft right away. How do you do that? You make a deal like that. Right. You make a deal like that where you can get more starters. You can get guys out there to play and start balling out for you and showing obvious improvement in those places right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. The other one that I really like is the kind of the oddball one out there that we talked about with Jeff last week, and that's the Colts thing.
That's the next scenario. That's the next scenario.
Okay. I mean, I'm with the Miami thing. I'm definitely down with moving down to 5 because you're getting something out of it.
Right.
You would hope that Miami is desperate enough to move up to make sure that they get the quarterback that they want, if that's the scenario, or that somebody is desperate enough to move up for Chase Young, that you end up with 2 first-round picks.
And here's the thing, Don H just mentioned one of the things that I have in my head, and he said it the exact same way. He's like, "Come on, man, it's the Lions, right? You get Chase Young, you're not going to." You're not going to move. You're not going to make any changes, anything. Minor microphone problem there. I want to let you talk here in a second so I can fix it. You don't make any moves. You don't make any changes. You get Chase Young at 3, and that's it. What happens if he gets hurt in preseason? I know you can't play scared, right? But what happens if he gets hurt in the preseason and all your first-round capital and treasure is now gone? That would be devastating. The idea that you could have effectively, I mean, with our number 3 in a second round pick, you could have effectively 3 first round picks.
Diversify your interests.
Huh? Oh, yeah.
Diversify your interests.
Your risk, yeah. You're learning well, my friend, young Padawan. So, what do you think? What's while I quickly fix this mic issue, and Road is warranting this for free, so thanks, Road. If the mailman was a little faster, I'd be in better shape. Okay, so what's your thing?
Actually, you didn't teach me that about diversifying your interests. I think that was Wu-Tang Clan, but
we're a friendly.
But no, I mean that would be a terrible situation, but that's obviously the risk that you ever take with a high first round pick is that a certain percentage of those guys is going to bust, not because they were a bad pick from a talent or a scheme or any of that, a personality perspective, just because there's fluke bad luck in there. Some guys get hurt. It just happens. And that sucks. But can I move on to the next scenario? Can I move on to this Colts thing? Because
Fine, go ahead.
Okay,
and do it.
okay.
I need some time to fix this mic anyway. About a minute away.
So I mean, if we were to move down to number 13 with Colts, obviously we're losing the obvious fit with Okudah. But what it does open up is possibilities. It just opens up so many possibilities because we have the 13th pick. At that point, we also have the 34th and 35th pick in the draft. The 34th coming from the Colts via the Redskins, and then we also have the Colts' other second round pick later, like mid second round pick. And the amount of things you can do with those 4 picks is just, I mean that's just insane. First of all, those early second round picks are basically first round picks because there's going to be guys who fall out of the first round simply because they weren't the right fit for whatever teams were near the end of the first round. The talent is 100% first round talent. Mm-hmm. Still, they just weren't the fit, or they weren't, they for one reason or another, they didn't quite match up with what those teams were looking for. So you're the beneficiary of that situation. Right. Or it leaves open, and Jeff pointed this out last week when we were talking about it. It opens up the possibility of packaging those and trading back up in the first round if there is a guy that you absolutely feel you have to have that could immediately impact your team. So I still really like both of those options. I like the Miami option. I like the Colts option. I'm fine with any of the other, like the weird ones, the Chargers or the Panthers, or I'm good with all of that. If it means some extra first and early second round capital, yeah, I'm game. But I'm always like that. Like, I am less concerned about getting the single guy who's a home run hit than I am with filling out the roster with quality talent. Yep. And even at that, the more opportunities you give yourself. Now, granted, the chances of getting that home run hit player earlier in the draft are higher, but if you add a number of different chances to get a player like that, your chances of getting that player are also higher.
Yep. So my thing is Chase Young is the guy, and that's why I want us to move down, because I think, for example, the Miami one, Okudah and a late first round pick is worth more than Chase Young. I really believe that. I
wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. I
really, really have a hard time with Chase Young's fit, and I worry that it's not going to be enough to bring us over the top. And like you said, I like the more picks. The hardest part, though, is you got to find a partner to trade with. That's the thing. And we talk about all these scenarios, and it's like, oh, you just trade down. It's not that easy, right? You got to find somebody to do it with you. Now, with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the phones. Give us a call. You can see it on the screen if you're watching on the YouTube. 248-782-8384. 248-782-8384. You can give us a ring, and we'll get you in. We'll talk about it and see what's going on with your thoughts on it. So yeah, that obviously is the third one is the trade, and you get no Okuda on it. I think we do have a caller. We've got, I think it's Brandon. Brandon, is it you? Did I recognize your number?
Is it me?
Oh no, how you doing? Damn it, I didn't. I was wrong. Who's on the phone? How you doing, bro? Sorry.
All righty then. No, this is Matt from Seattle, who really doesn't watch enough football to be calling. But I just basically, this is the guy who was down in Florida and tried to get together with you.
Oh yeah, Northwood Guitar.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense. I've been trying to call a few times because I just want to tell you over the last year and a half, your pod has been an absolute lifesaver and has made me a complete total fan again.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Well, that's good.
Thanks, dude. That's really cool.
We're setting you up to get crushed again. Just,
Oh, it's okay. I live in Seattle and I have to deal with all these people bitching about their team and what a crap show it is. And I'm like, you guys, just be quiet.
I much prefer the scenario where I'm watching Vikings fans complain about their team than having to listen to Lions fans complain about their team. So
it's funny, man, because that's exactly what got us started doing this, right? Case is living out in North Dakota. Time I was in SoCal, and it was like a Lions fan living on an island. I had no one to talk about. I had a couple of Bears knuckleheads, just the standard of the Green Bay fan. There's no team in LA, so it was just a plethora of bozos, and there was no one that wanted to talk about the Lions unless they were laughing at them, right? It was terrible. And so it was like we got involved in the subreddit, and that was great. And I was like, it's time we could give something back. And this kind of came out of that whole idea of not having a place to go or people to talk about it with. So no, man, it's great that you enjoy it. I really appreciate that.
So not to put you too much on the spot or anything, but do you have any feelings about the off season, be it free agency, be it the draft? Where's your head at for the off season?
Oh man, you're really asking the wrong guy. Okay, so the reality is all I really care about for this off season, and it has absolutely nothing to do with football, and I totally apologize.
That's okay.
Is whether or not my daughter is going to get recruited into a Division I soccer program because she's had 2 coaches get fired already and then lost offers. So that's where my head's at. I guess one of the big things that I hope happens is that I hope people are a bit more patient with Patricia and off season. For some reason I feel like we should stick with snacks, and even though I know we're going to this coming year. And in terms of moves, I just am not the guy to talk to about this.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm really optimistic. Cool. I feel like the team's actually moving in a positive direction, and I think sending the team kind of like positive juju is a really important thing, because if fans start believing, then the team will start believing, and then the organization starts believing. So that's why I think what you guys do is actually really powerful. So.
Well, thanks, man.
Well, thank you.
I absolutely agree with you, and I'm going to do a sneak peek right now. But the coaching staff and the front office needs time, and that's something that they haven't been given lately. And I got a call today. I'm going to play just you're here for a little reveal. This is something a preview to next week. We'll talk more about it in a second. But this is the longest tenured coach in a long time.
Hey, Chris, this is Wayne Ponce. Just picked up your message. I'm going to
this phone number right there.
Have a great day.
Just wait.
And it's about 80 degrees here today.
He's trolling. He thought I was in Detroit. We'll be talking to him. So yeah. No, he's a guy that got a lot of time, and he's the last one that had a playoff win. So maybe there's something connected there.
Well, I hope so. And just so you know, I'm not like I did grow up in Traverse City and spend like the first half of my life there, but so I am actually from Michigan and like a lifelong Lions fan. And I turned 50 next 2 months. It's just it's just time. It's time, and it's time for us to change as fans, and it's time for us to anyway, that's what I got to say. So,
all right,
thanks a lot, you guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, right on.
Thanks.
So,
sorry we couldn't get together when you're in town, man. If you make it back, we'll hook up.
It's fine. It's fine. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good luck with your daughter. All right, man. Coolness. All right, again, the phones are open. We're willing to talk draft talk with you. That's what we do. We're going to close up here. We got about 20 minutes to go, and then we're going to close up and pop back on the stream to do our second segment with Dean Blandino about the XFL. So there you go. So you can call in if you want. I think for us, that's about where we're at on the draft stuff. Did you have anything else, Case, or do we want to move? And if you guys want to call in about the
not
draft,
this week, we got plenty of time to cover a lot more stuff. So no, this week that's about where we're at.
All right, I got James on the phone. James, how you doing?
Oh, g'day, Chris. G'day, Case. How you going?
Hey,
you don't sound like you're from around here.
No. I called up you guys. I reckon it was after the Giants game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Australia, so in Melbourne, Australia.
no kidding.
I think you spoke last time, so.
I'm sorry that I'm a dick. Don't mind me.
I'm surprised Case actually picked up on it.
I loved it because I've only got a few mates over here that follow football and that sort of thing. We have our own fantasy league and that. And I rang them up straight away and I said, the guys I listen to on the podcast, I love them so much. The guy even called me a
we got in trouble for that.
We may again. That's the only time we've been demonetized is because of that. Darn it! I need a second delay.
Hey! This time it would be a cultural issue if they took away our money for it. Do you ever listen to the Aussie Guys podcast or Aussie Guys football podcast?
I haven't yet, but
you should check it out. I go on their show every year. I wasn't able to make it this year, but for the last 5-6 years, I go on their show every year to talk Lions. They before the season starts. I absolutely check them out. They're great guys.
Yeah, all right. I will definitely. A couple of things. I actually did want to just say, in the same long lines with Matt. A thank you to you guys because, as I said, I've been a Lions fan since. Well, actually, I started following him through the 0-16 season, so what a season to start. I followed Stafford through college, and then when he got drafted by the Lions, I was like, all right, it's made. So I'm going to follow them. But I wouldn't call myself a Lions fan until I absolutely found myself yelling at the TV screen during the Dallas game.
It's like eating Vegemite ever since, right?
I think I cried. Exactly. If it's the same Dallas game I'm thinking of, I literally cried during that game, and I think that's the only time that's ever happened. But
it's unbelievable. But what further, cemented my love for the Lions was you guys, because you go into so depth, but you're optimistic about it. You always provide, both sides of the story, and you let us as viewers make up our own minds, and that's what I love. And by getting in Riz and all that sort of stuff, who I read all his stuff. I read Eric Schlitt's stuff from US Lions Wire. I listen to everyone. So it's just awesome. Love the podcast. Love the show. I think you guys do a great job. I'm actually trying to plan a trip to America next year for about 6 months to come over and see, go to the preseason and that sort of thing as well.
Ooh.
Well, if you make it up to North Dakota, let me know.
If you come for if you make it for training camp, that's a heck of a party. I would love to see have an Aussie guy try to put us down.
I will do my best.
It's kind of a badge of honor to drink with an Aussie.
Yeah, I'll be sure to have a beer with you, Chris. I'll be sure to have a beer with you.
That's great. That's great.
Or many.
That's usually how it goes.
I just wanted to a thing with the back onto the draft. I wanted to say about if Chase Young does fall to us three, how do you feel about you guys maybe the Lions trading back with someone even if Chase Young is there? For a team that might, want that edge rusher.
That's a great scenario that no one's talked about. I mean, because I feel like you have to take Chase Young if Chase Young is there. And we're always talking about, who would trade up for a quarterback? to get ahead of whoever else, or at least get the second guy, because there's going to be competition for people wanting a quarterback. But the actual treasure you could get for somebody who wants an edge, that's interesting. That's an interesting concept. What do you think?
Because you could probably like a fair bit of value for him, because he's, everyone's talking about him, how good he's going to be.
Right.
So
I still think. Yeah, no, I absolutely think there is a market for him available. It would just, at that point, it would be a matter of whether or not we'd rather have him, or what the offer is. So, no, I absolutely think that's a potential viable scenario. The trade down scenarios in this draft are much greater than they've been in any other draft. And every single year, I tell people, don't get your hopes up, because we fantasize about trading down, but I tell people, don't get your hope up, because it's actually really rare. Well, this is the first year that we've been doing the podcast where I think it's actually, it almost seems more likely than not.
Yeah. And I will say, the only problem with that is we need an edge just as bad as anyone in the top 15.
Right.
So trading down maybe a little bit, it may, I just don't think there's the right kind of partner in the right spot for us to do that. If I just kind of very quickly look through and think,
fair enough.
There. That's fair. That's fair. I suppose the next question would be, like, if we were to trade down, do you feel like there's a drop off between, because we're in that position where we need to make playoffs next year, and Martha's, said about the letter and all that sort of stuff, that if we trade back down too far, do you reckon there's a drop off between players that are going to be an immediate impact to then a player that we might just get like a development player or something like that? Is there a point?
Let's use that, because we have that as a topic, actually, the letter from Martha. And let's use this as a way to get into that case. There was somebody who posted, his name was Foreman, in the subreddit. False narratives: Quinn and Patricia face an ultimatum to make the playoffs, or they will be fired. That is not a false narrative. One of the things that we talked about at the Senior Bowl, and I don't know if this was off the air or on the air, so I'll assume it was on. Sorry. We were talking to Dave Burkett, who spends a lot of time with the team, and it was one of the few reporters in the room when that was released first to the press and then to everybody else. And while the note says, or something viable or whatever, I forget the exact wording of the mail, he was darn certain that it meant playoffs or bust. I think that was just a couple of weasel words in case you had you're one game out and Matthew Stafford gets injured, or, a tornado takes down Ford Field, some, act of God scenario kind of thing. Right. I think that, and Burkett, based on what Burkett tells us, that this is a playoffs or bust for this administration. I don't necessarily like it, and I don't like that thinking, but I think according to where he's at and his knowledge and the people he talks to, that's exactly what it is.
I don't know that. I believe that that's the situation as we speak, but I also think those situations are always fluid. If we end up the year, 9-7 and miss the playoffs, and they had a good showing, or maybe what if Stafford misses half the year again and we go 8-8, but there was a really good showing, like a really good improvement on the defense or something like that. Right. Like, there's always scenarios that, even though if you look at it like, yeah, okay, there's definitely expectations. There is definitely expectations, and if they can't begin to meet those,
the pressure in this town will be too great because the negativity is so strong right now around this team, has been since before he coached a day. With the whole article that came out and about the past that didn't advance the story at all, it's I just don't think that the town will give these guys the opportunity, and I absolutely believe that, barring an abject failure this year, they deserve this year another year to get it together. It's what we've seen. They need the time, and if you look at who your longest tenured coach is before your longest tenured last coach, it goes to the last guy who won a playoff game with this team. So that's just kind of where it's at. Don, you're absolutely right in the chat, saying that's why it's so critical to get this draft right. And here's the part where it's crazy. If this draft isn't right, the players aren't going to be a fit likely for the next coach and system. and general manager. The general manager and coach are gone. You're 2-3 years of building, and then look at where Stafford is in his career. This team spins and cycles for a couple years if they don't land at this time. This is a do or die year for just about everybody involved with this team, and the stakes are absolutely as high as we've seen them in the last couple of years.
Back to your question real quick, that whether or not moving down further in the draft impacts the ability of the immediate impact, and whether or not that impacts whether or not this coaching staff will be able to stick around. I mean, I would say that's a factor to be considered, but even at pick 13, there are guys there that, like in the Colts scenario, even in pick 13, there are guys there who could have immediate impact. And even at the, where we would be then double picking early in the second round, I think there's guys there who could have an immediate impact. I mean, Kerryon Johnson had an immediate impact as a rookie before he got hurt. Yep. And now the running back position is a little bit different than our positions, so don't misunderstand the thought there. But just in general, there are players throughout the first few rounds, the first couple rounds anyway, especially up through, midway through the second round, that will have immediate impacts for their teams.
Yeah.
We just have to get them right.
No,
that's the trick.
That's fair enough. Yeah. That's fair. No, that's good. Awesome.
All
right, I'll let you guys go. I'll get off the phone. And I'll talk to you next time. So no, thank you again, guys.
Yeah,
great hearing from you.
Thanks for the kind words. The whole deal.
Thanks,
man.
guys.
Awesome. Be good.
Bye.
All right. Let's see.
Before we started recording today, Chris told me let's try to be on our best behavior today as far as language and things, and then I slipped up earlier too. So like,
let's check in with our fresh new caller. Hi, caller. How are you, and how are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm just peachy, man.
Oh, Brandon, I knew it was you. God. I was gonna guess again, but I messed it up. Okay, how you doing, brother? Good to have you on the call.
I'm just doing fine. Yeah, hey, Matt beat me. Hitting each other in the chat. But, I tell you what, you guys have been hitting on a lot of good points. And when it comes to the draft itself, there's just all the scenarios are now being gone over by all the various draft nicks and all the various mock draft guys. Actually, they're making it really easy for all the teams to have to do this, try and figure out what to do with their board, because that way they can just already have it in print and they don't have to do all the research.
Right.
I mean, if there's any team that really, I got to thinking about this, if there's any team that will walk down, so to speak, that's going to be the Redskins. They need players, man.
Oh, yeah.
And it isn't so much on the defense, it's on the offense. I mean, they're skill players. They got pretty good skill players. I don't know how long AP's going to play, but they've got some pretty good running backs. They got decent receivers, but they ain't got nobody up front. If they can talk Trent Williams into staying, then they still got to deal with trying to figure out if they can sign Brandon Scherf or not.
Right.
And there was somebody else also that they got a problem with that they don't know if they'll be able to keep or not. So it's like I was talking on Twitter with Jeff. I said the defensive line is the least of their worries. So they could actually skip on Chase Young, believe it or not, because they've already got a bunch of guys. And if they do take him on, where are they going to put him? I mean, they can rotate him in and out and so on and so forth, probably have a great defensive line. But how much of an impact will that guy be at that high in the draft compared to where other guys they can get elsewhere? And I don't know if their cap situation is really all that great.
What we need more than anything is Justin Herbert to be a superstar at the combine, to be just a home run hitter, because that's the thing that then creates value at 3, the tradable value at 3, right? Because you're absolutely right. It all is predicated on Washington either trading out and having Chase Young, which is who we'll wind up with, or Washington taking Chase Young and then giving us the opportunity to trade out, because people want Tua. You put Tua and Herbert as 2 super high desire picks, it makes the whole calculus different on this draft, and that's really, really what Lions fans want. They want those 2 guys. They just want the world to fall in love with those 2 guys.
Now, here's something else that a lot of people keep forgetting about. You've got to, as one radio host I'd like to listen to calls it, you got to marry up the free agents with the draft.
Oh yeah,
and you've got to look at who the free agent quarterbacks are, and that's always one that will throw a wrench in the works when it comes to trade ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Miami, they're going to go young. Everybody knows that. The Chargers are definitely going young, and then young in quarterback, not Chase Young. And the Panthers are the other team where you don't know what's going to happen. The owner was interviewed the other day, and did a press report. He would not commit to Cam. Cam says he thinks he can stay and play.
He said, "I'm not a doctor. He's not a doctor."
So.
Yep.
Nope. So he may move. You've got other teams down further, like the Colts, and the Raiders are, they're doing their due diligence, so to speak. They don't know if they're going to keep Carr or not. Who knows, man? It's John Gruden.
Similar with the Bears.
I'm telling you, man.
That's the one thing that John Gruden does have is you just can't predict crazy, right? You have no idea what that guy is going to do.
No idea what's going to happen with the Saints at this point either.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after everything's said and done, you got a few guys who are out there that are viable starters, like Teddy Bridgewater. If Drew Brees stays and plays another year, Teddy ain't staying. And then you got even Taysom Hill says he wants to be a starter. Now, what's going to happen with him? He's actually older than Teddy Bridgewater. So
he's 30. He's never. Yeah, I think that's a fantasy, but
yeah. Hey, we've only got a couple minutes left. We got a time thing with Dean Blandino coming up to talk about the XFL.
I'll just say real quick that I do agree with you, though. Like the whole landscape that we're talking about, we could talk till we're blue in the face about what we think is going to happen in the draft, but until free agency shakes out, we're not going to really know what the landscape looks like.
Hey, I got one question you could ask Dean. I've been trying to reach him on Twitter. It's tough. Ask him what he thinks of this idea of a rule. If they allowed one pass play on a run back, you imagine what kind of strategy you'd have to have.
Oh, wow. All right, yeah.
We'll ask him what he thinks of that.
I got a question for you.
Man.
I got a question for you, Brendan.
All right.
Brandon, before you go.
Yeah.
Because it's different, right? I mean, people have a different level of stoke on this one. How stoked are you to have Wayne Fonts on next week?
Oh, baby. The Fonz. Bring the Fonz back.
Remember the last playoff winning coach of this team, right? I just talked to him together. He was so cool. I'm trying to get a cigar time with him, too, because we only live about 5 miles apart.
You got to do it. You got to do it.
Oh, yeah. So he's going to be on. He's scheduled for next week. Wayne Fonts will be here on the show. With that being said, oh God, I had another question for you. I'm sorry, I lost it. I just freaked out.
We'll
get him next time.
One little thing I'd like to say it if I could on the broadcast. Everybody out there, you got to find on YouTube 1981 Thanksgiving Day game, and it's with Eric Hipple and Billy Sims and the Silver Rush at their best. Yeah. They playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Find it. Watch it before they take it down. The NFL finds the thing, man. It's an awesome game. Anyway, I'll get out of here.
All right, Brandon. Thank you very much, man.
Thanks for the heads up.
All right, there we are. All right, yeah, we're running on a little bit of a schedule here, so we got just a few minutes left. Like we said, Wayne Fonts is coming next week on the show. We'll have him on. He's awesome. He's great. Let's see here really quick. With how the team played when Matthew Stafford was healthy, it's no surprise to see the Lions are given the best chance to go from worst to first in 2020. That was posted by Hybrid Remix in the chat. I got it before you speak to that case. Got to say, if you're looking for any Lions gear, sporting gear of any kind, Red Wings, college, whatever, go ahead and head over to fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Head over, and it'll take you straight to the site. You get access to all the pro, the college stuff, the official, real top quality licensed gear, and you'll get that for yourself. And it's a great way to help the podcast out because they give us a little cut of whatever you spend over there. Don't enrich in these people that already make too much money. Enrich in the empire, the vast podcast empire of the Detroit Lions Podcast. Fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. use that, please, and help support us like we like you to do by doing something you do anyway. All right, Case, let's talk about that. Worst to first.
Well, I could probably talk about it for half an hour, but I don't have that much time, so I'll try to condense. PFF put out an article ranking all 8 teams that finished last in their division and who they thought was most likely to go worst first. It's actually the second article of this variety that I've seen suggest the Lions are, a good worst first candidate. I don't even remember if we've talked about it on the show, but I know we've talked about it in the Slack chat a little bit about, the comparison to the 49ers and where they were at prior to, their enormous run this year. And nobody came into the year thinking they had a chance. But if it's easy to look back now and see what, was going right with them and what they needed to turn it around. And one of the big things, obviously, was the health of their quarterback. Now, I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is anywhere near as good as Matthew Stafford. So let's start there. If Matthew Stafford is able to come back and play healthy, he was playing as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL before he got hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, add on to that the 3 of the losses they had and the tie before he went out were, 1-score games or a tie.
Yep.
Against teams. 3 of those teams, the losses all went to the playoffs. So they already were in a position where they were likely to finish the year in a 7, 8, 9 win range as opposed to where they ended up.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. So, I mean, that's a huge potential for rebound.
Yep. Don H nails it. I mean, he calls it again. I'll be telling you, it will tell you just how close to parity the talent is in the NFL if the Lions could do that kind of a rebound.
Right. Now, having said that, we also, and around the division style here, the rest of the division is in a little bit of a tough situation. And, I know that some people think that they heard the exact same thing last year. And I get that, although the one major difference is that myself and our friend Risden, whose name I couldn't conjure for a second there. We both agreed that the Packers had a really good offseason last year. It's unlikely the Packers will be able to repeat that this year. They have a tiny bit of cap space, but the best thing that they could be able to do essentially is to maintain and then pick up, late draft picks. It would be difficult for them to entirely fix their wide receiving core. Blake Martinez, who is the anchor of their defense, could be going for a big payday somewhere else, or he could eat up all the cap space they have available. One of those 2 options is essentially what's on the table for them. It's going to be hard for them to go out and do what they did last year, and it was a change of pace last year. Obviously, what we saw from them going out and being active in free agency, but it'll be very difficult for them to repeat that process again this year. Aaron Rodgers is still a good quarterback, but he's not the transcendent talent. At least it doesn't look. I shouldn't jump to too many conclusions there. It doesn't quite look like he's the transcendent talent that he once was anymore. And so you take that away from them. And that was what that team was able to get away with for so long. Yep. Without that, and they were a 13-3 team. They only had a 63, I want to say, positive net points, which is very low for a team that has a 13-3 record. You would expect some regression to the mean in that area. You'd expect that even if they stayed as good a team, that they'd be more like a 10-6 team. The Vikings have no cap space. They already have an issue where they're going to have to get rid of some talent. They're going to have to get rid of Xavier Rhodes, which isn't necessarily a problem for them, but that's still not going to leave them enough money to be active in free agency. They might have to get rid of 1 or 2 other, contributors as well. They're not going to be able to be super active here. The Bears are in a similar cap situation. They don't have a lot of money to spend. They don't have a first-round draft pick. It is a rough, theoretically, on paper, these things can change, a rough off season for the NFC North outside of the Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. With that, you're going to buy tickets to anything, music, sports, whatever. Tix.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Tix.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. We are running late. We got to get going. We got Dean Blandino coming up right now.